Right, folks, we finally here. Part 7 in the series of Why All Things Were Better in My Day. And you'll find it on the playlist under that title, Why All Things Were Better in My Day. For those that have listened, you'll know what it's all about. For those that haven't, I'm going through in the main, growing up in the 70s, but I'm chucking some things in from the early 60s and from up to probably 1981, 82. To that end, I've got an entry in number 7 here that I'm really pleased about. More about that in a moment. But it's a 7-part series. This is part number 7. And today we're going to look at comedy that I grew up with as a kid into my late teens. And I'm saying comedy was better in my day than it was in my children's day, and certainly in my grandchildren's day, which is today, because I think it's crap at the moment. But in our day, it was absolutely brilliant. Unfortunately, we didn't live in PC times. We do now. Much of the comedy that we watched in our day that I would still like to watch, we're not given chance to because TV stations will not play it. As I said the other day, we need a dedicated TV station, probably called something like Gold or Proper Gold, where everything goes, but with warnings before each show. That way, if somebody doesn't want to enjoy something, if somebody doesn't want to laugh, if somebody wants to see bad in everything, even when bad isn't there, they just don't have to watch it. If, however, folk like myself who grew up in these things do want to watch it without any editing at all, we can just watch the show uncut. Nothing wrong with that as far as I'm concerned, but unfortunately, well, I'm not in the minority, many of my age group feel the same. Unfortunately, the PC Brigade have it, so these people that run these TV stations aren't that way inclined. Right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to concentrate in the main on the 70s. I've not looked at every show and found out when it came out and when it finished. I've not looked at stars in every show. I'm going to comment on certain shows that I watched. All of these I'm going to tell you on here are shows that I've watched and liked. There'll be some that I've really loved that I've forgotten. You tell me what they are. There'll be some that I've left off here that I just didn't like. If you tell me you loved them, I'll tell you why I've left them off here. And there'll be some that we all forget, but they'll come to us later. One's just come to me 2 minutes ago. I've had this list done. I've had to do a list because there's that many shows. I've had this list done a week now. I keep putting this one off because it's going to be a long one. Part 1 in this series was too long and people were complaining it was too long. It was nigh on an hour. I appreciate it's too long and I appreciate YouTube keep throwing ads in. I have no control over that. I believe you can control it when you know what you're doing. I don't know how to do it, so I just put videos out and if ads come on, they come on. If they don't, they don't. Honestly, there's nothing I can do about it. I am Mr. Technophobe. So what I'm going to do now for you is I'm going to go and tell you the early shows I remember because there's 3 or 4 of them that I remember. I don't even know how I remember them. With a couple of them, I know the stars that were in them. That's without doing any research, I just know them. But I can't remember anything about the shows, but I know I used to watch them and I know I liked them. But I must have been really young when I watched them, I'm thinking. Then I'll tell you the early shows that I watched when I was a kid that I loved. One of them is the oldest show of them all, but I only sort of got to watch it when I was, not a kid, when I was a bit older probably, 12, 13, 14. It was probably that age before I understood it more, because it was cleverer humour. And then we'll go up right up to, I wouldn't say the present day, but late 70s, we'll probably at 81, and that's all, will it? To that end, we've got a comedy that's just crept in right at the bottom end. I couldn't believe it came out in 81. I thought it was late 80s. I was really, really shocked. So because I've included 81 in a few of these lists, I'm going to do it again. Right, without any further ado, bins on. Sorry for this. Lucky I look down a lot so you'll just see the thatch, or the lack of thatch. The thatch. When I look up, you get them lights. I'm sorry about that because it's night time. Nothing I can do. Right, the earliest shows I remember were, what were they? Bear with me a sec. Never mind the quality, feel the width. It just came to me I've added it. I forgot all about it, but I remember it. I think it was based on, was it tailors? And I think they were Jewish tailors. I think, without looking. Don't remember for the life of me who was in it, but I know I enjoyed it. The Rag Trade. I just remember the name. I've always remembered the name, and I think I've seen it. I know I've seen it, but I don't know a lot about it. But there was someone called, was it Miriam Callan, I think was in it, and I think Sheila Hancock was in it. But she'd be, I mean, she's ancient now. This was years ago it came out, so I don't know if she was, but I'm pretty certain she was. And then I also remember, I wrote it down, but not who was in it, but I knew who was in it. It was Bill Fraser and Alfie Bass. What were they? Bootsy and Snudge. I remember Bootsy and Snudge, but again, I don't remember anything about it. But I know I watched it, and I know I liked it. And I can see them now on the parts that they played. You know, Alfie Bass was the little downtrodden guy in it, and Bill Fraser was the big man and the boss and sort of bossed him around, but I don't remember a lot about it. And then, these aren't in a particular order, then we've got Hancock's Half Hour, which is one of the best things I've ever watched. That was probably one of the earliest things ever made, but that was the thing I mentioned a minute ago. I probably started watching that when I was 12, 13, 14, when I understood it more. I love Tony Hancock and Sid James, both great. Sykes, like Sykes, I know now it looks a bit tame, but in its time I liked it. Terry and June, I know everybody would say it was very middle class and very stuck up, but when I was a kid I liked it. I didn't know better. So yeah, I liked Terry and June. I mean, I liked, you know, a name, I can't think of a name. See, these things go, because I don't write them down, folks, but June Whitfield, I like June. I liked her like most anything. Nearest and Dearest. Well, I loved Eli. Eli was a bit of a rotter. I liked Eli and Nelly. You know, I must get a little hand put on this watch. I loved Nearest and Dearest. Anything to do with Pickle Factory. All the things they did together, I thought were absolutely great. I always wanted to know if Walter had been or not. I think they kept him pretty regular. They had to, because you never know what would happen otherwise. And I don't think they had adult nappies at that time, so she had to make sure he was regular. Rising Damp, who could forget old Leonard? Died much, much, much too young. Just one of the great comedies of all time. What I remember here, I said in no order, Up Pompeii with Frankie Howard. I liked that because it was very clever and it was very near the knuckle. And I seem to remember, I mentioned a show when I did part 6 on there called The Odd Couple. That was an American thing with Jack Klugman and I can't remember the other guy's name. The Up Pompeii was about the same time on a Saturday night, the 11 o'clock, 11:15 slot after Match of the Day in Parkinson, because it was a bit near the knuckle and I used to really, really enjoy it. He had some lovely buxom blondes and brunettes on there. Do you remember? He was surrounded by plenty of them, for all he was not that way inclined. Whatever happened to the Likely Lads? Dad's Army. Here's one I remember from years ago, and I remember the guy's nickname in it, but I don't remember the show, but I know I loved it. The Dustbin Men. Do you remember the Dustbin Men? Cheese and Egg. I remember the Dustbin Men, but I don't remember a lot about it, but I know I loved it. Really enjoyed that as a kid. Bless This House, again, maybe people will say it's a bit Terry Junius, but I like Sid James. I just like Sid James. I liked his wife in it. I didn't mind his daughter. Some, not so much. Next Door Neighbours liked him. I just liked the show. It was gentle humour, but it was of its time, and I liked it. Steptoe and Son, well, just brilliant. I mean, from black and white through to colour, just fantastic. And to think that they really hated one another and didn't get on. They played great parts. They bounced off each other well, considering that. Police Sir, the Fen Street Gang, John Alderson doing both and whatever else. The teachers in it, the Welsh fellow that was in another comedy that we're going to go to later. The horrible woman teacher, I can't remember her name for the life of me. The doddery old headmaster, loved it. Who was it Frankie on there? He didn't mess with Frankie if memory serves, although he wasn't hard, but he wanted to pretend he was. Well, then we go to a couple now. We'll go on the buses first. I liked On the Buses, no problem with that at all. With the old clippies there, he liked it. Yeah, I liked On the Buses, no problem at all. And then we'll go to the one that everybody knocks now, the one that we just don't see on TV because it's not PC, and that's Love Thy Neighbour with old Jack Smethurst. I used to love Thy Neighbour. I thought it was great, thought it was really funny. I know in today's thinking it doesn't wash well. I know that, I mean, they didn't use the ER word, and I don't mean like an operating room. They used, can I say it? I'm going to have to say it because it's not meant in a bad way. I'm not going to use the worst word. They used Sambo. They used that thing off, you used to get on Jam. They used that. It was like you know what it was? G and then W for the last part of the name. They used that. And they used 2 3-letter words, both beginning with N. But they didn't use the one that started in N and ended in ER. They didn't use that one. But it was of its day, and maybe now it doesn't go well, I get that. But even that, I think they should play. They should get a TV station to show it. They should play it, and they should start with a disclaimer. And based on that, or going on that programme, I remember a good while ago now, I think I once mentioned it on here, I watched, you might have seen it, you might not have done, Len Goodman, when he got sort of big on Dancing on Ice and with the Stars, the Beeb, to sort of keep him on the Beeb and give him some extra cash and to get him in front of the viewers' board, because the viewers loved Len. He was a fantastic fellow in all ways. They gave him a couple of series, different things. He went to certain places where people grew up, the foods that they ate when they grew up, and he did something with the TV that they watched when they grew up. And I remember one episode there, you may have seen it, you may not. If you've not, it's worth looking for. You've got Len Goodman on there, and his guest for the day is Linford Christie. And Linford's talking about the TV he watched when he grew up. And he said, one of my favourite programmes, without a shadow of a doubt growing up, was Love Thy Neighbour. Me and my dad loved it. We rolled with laughter, absolutely rolled. And Len said something like, well, you can't watch that anymore, can you? And Linford said, well, you can't, because people say you can't. He said, but that said, me and my dad obviously were black, and we weren't offended because we don't feel the things that it was saying were said in a racist way. And we feel what they were doing was they were shining a light on that kind of person that was racist and making the butt of the jokes that person, in that person wasn't right to be saying what he was saying, and that person wasn't right to be as prejudiced as he was. But we knew deep down that person had a decent heart and wasn't that bad a person. But he grew up in a time when he got used to saying these things, he said, and we realised that, if anything, the show was to highlight how racist Jack Smithers could be. But also, although he also sort of wasn't, because he was a decent fella, but he grew up with them words and he used to use them words. So he said, me and my dad never ever felt offended. We just roared with laughter from when it started to when it ended. And I'm thinking, well, if a black man saying that, who's grown up in Great Britain and probably had racist issues as he growing up, because I bet he had, it's probably never been as bad over here as it is in America if you're black, but it's still bad enough, and especially in and around London, I would have thought, where Linford would have grown up. If Linford suffered from race hate in his time, and as I say, I'm sure he will have done, for him to say he liked that show and him and his dad really enjoyed it, makes you think how many other people that are of colour will have enjoyed the show, and they also can't see it now because the PC Brigade say it's racist, it's not on, we shouldn't watch it. As I say, get a TV station, play everything, but put a disclaimer at the start. And I thought, those that don't want to watch it don't need to watch it. Who gets hurt by that? But no, I liked it, Love Thy Neighbour. I thought it was great. The Doctor series, Doctor at Large, Doctor in the House, Doctor here, there and everywhere. All right, again, gentle humour. But I liked it. Which makes me think there's the other one where they were all in class, and they were all different races. Somebody tell me what that is, because I can't remember. Do you remember that one? You had a black person in there, you had an Asian person, you might have had a Jewish person, you had all races in this class. I can't think what it was called, but it was reasonably funny. It come to me just that. The Worker, do you remember The Worker? That was another old one. Charlie Drake. Seen some of Charlie Drake the other night on something on that channel that keep talking pictures. I seen him being interviewed. I thought it was all right. The Worker. My dad used to call me that as a laugh when I was working, but not working particularly hard. So I've remembered that one. I mentioned a show the other night when we was talking on one of the episodes, For the Love of Ada. And I remembered Wilfred Pickles, and I couldn't remember Irene Handel till right near the end of the video. But I remembered it. But as I say, I'm working off series A, but there's no names on there whatsoever. I've got no names, but I used to love Irene Handel growing up. And I loved Wilfred Pickles. It was just his voice. I know he was a massive star on the radio. I don't remember that, but being a kid born in the very early 60s, I will have heard him on the radio, but I wouldn't remember it. But he had something about him. He was just that lovely, older, wise Yorkshire fella. What I mean by that is he sounded like that, and he played that kind of part. And he was somebody that you thought, God, if he was my granddad, he'd be like... That's the kind of granddad you'd want. You just knew he'd be a nice person. I'm sure in real life he was a nice person, but I don't know that. But he didn't have to come across that way on the screen. I loved him. Now, the story behind that is, many years ago, it's been on Talking Pictures TV recently. They say it might still be on now. It's been on over the last 18 months or so. I watched them all 18 months ago when it came out. I watched them all from start to finish because I always loved it. And I know, again, things have moved on, but I loved it. And again, Jack Smithers is in that. But... in the early days of Sky, when it wasn't called Sky, I think it was even before BSB or whatever, I can't remember what it was called, when you all had dishes then, they used to have it on there at one time, or they did at one time, and when the series was on, I watched it, this will be, good grief, at least 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. God, it's probably more than 30 years ago. I was in my first house with the wife. Now, when we first moved into it, she wasn't the wife, we were living over the brush. Do you remember that term, over the brush? For about 12 months before we got wed. Now, I don't know if I was wed at the time or whether there was still overt brush. But I'm watching an episode of that one night while she's cutting my hair. Yeah, so she's cutting my hair in the front room, and I'm watching it. We're catching all the hair on some kind of mat I've put down, and that's on. And I gets a phone call, from, I think it was from my mum. Your Uncle Albert's so really bad. He's collapsed at home. It doesn't look good. They've rushed him to hospital. We're going down there now, me and your dad. Your Auntie Irene's already gone down in the ambulance. That's my auntie. My Uncle Albert's the one I've mentioned to you before, folks. He used to take me to the rugby league when I was about 4 or 5 years of age, all the way through my childhood. He used to take me to the swing bridge to watch the boats go past on a Sunday. And he used to take me to the cemetery. I know it'll sound weird. It wasn't. To see George Formby's grave. I used to go regularly. Why, I don't know, but we did. But I loved it. And I've always remembered him and loved him. Anyway, he had an heart attack in his back garden. I think it was a Thursday night. I'm pretty sure it was a Thursday night. It'd been about 7:30, 8 o'clock. I'm watching For the Love of Ada. It must be near winter time because I know it was dark. I gets this call. I gets to the hospital sort of 12 minutes later. I've got some hair up here, the rest of it down here. I might be making that up, I don't know. But it wouldn't look good because it was halfway through the haircut. And I walked in the hospital and he'd already died. He never came to. The blessing is he died straight away. Didn't know anything about it. But I was gutted. Absolutely gutted. I love the man. I love him to this day. I remember him fondly. Anyway, I was watching For the Love of Ada that one night. Why I'm telling you that, I don't know, but I'm telling you. So that's what it means. It means a lot to me because of that. Till Death Us Do Part, I loved it. Didn't mind the reboot at all. But the originals with the black and white and the Scouse Gate and whatever was at its best. The Noel Eunice Stubbs. Loved it. Till Death Us Do Part. Again, you can't have that anymore. You should be able to. I'll give you one here. I've got 2 ears, but I'll give you one here that I'd forgotten. And I don't know I had. And it was on again. I think it might have been Talking Pictures TV, but it might not have been. It was on something only about 6 months ago. And I thought, I used to like that. I'm going to watch that. And again, I've watched them all. Do you remember? Oh, no, it's Selwyn Froggatt. Oh, Bill Maynard. I used to like that as a kid, but I couldn't remember it. Watched them all the other week, or the other month. I think it was about 3 series of about 6 episodes. Absolutely loved it. Thought it was great, Selwyn. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And I still enjoyed it. And again, that's where the teacher from Police Who comes in. He was the main committee man, I think, on Oh No, It's Selwyn Froggatt. And the thing I take from Selwyn Froggatt, do you remember what he used to say? Now, I didn't remember this, so I'm testing you. What did he used to order when he went to the bar? I'll give you 10 seconds. Shout me the answers. I can hear you. That's from a song. I can't think what it's called. Love Shack. No. Packet of nuts and a pint of cooking. And I thought, what's a pint of cooking? Oh, it was a bag of nuts and a pint of cooking. I thought, I've got to look at that. So I went on the old internet. Pint of cooking. They used to call a pint of cooking pint of bitter, a pint of mild. I think mainly bitter was a pint of cooking. They were sort of saying it was the cheapest beer sold in the pub at that time. So he used to order a pint of cooking with a bag of nuts. There's one for you. George and Mildred. Oh, I love George. I love Mildred. They were brilliant. They were just a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant double act. I seen 5 minutes of one of the shows only 2 weeks ago. 10 minutes maybe of the shows. Didn't half have me laughing. I thought they were one of the great double acts of RTV, to be honest with you. Then from there, they had The Old Man About the House, Robin's Nest. Again, more your gentle humour, like your Terry and June and the other one I mentioned. But still great. Your man with the half an arm, you know, the Irish fella, the painter and decorator, the odd job man, doing it all with one arm. He was brilliant. Open All Hours with our Ronnie Barker. Porridge. Going Straight. Now, it never did that well, Going Straight, the old spin-off, but it was still nothing wrong with it. It was nowhere near as good as Porridge, of course it wasn't. But it wasn't bad. You know, if they'd never made Porridge, you'd say Going Straight was good. Because it came after Porridge, it's never really got mentioned. The Goodies. Now, The Goodies, I watch The Goodies more than I watch Monty Python. I've never watched The Goon Show, really. I've got to say, I've never watched The Goon Show. I used to watch Python now and again, and some of it I loved. Some of it I didn't. A lot of it I didn't. Some of it I loved. A couple of my mates loved it, but I never really got into it. The Goodies I didn't mind, yet I knew they were crap. You know, the old Ecky Thump and all that, and all the big graphics and whatever. I knew they weren't that great, really, but I used to watch them, and I don't really know why, but I did. The Liver Birds, Butterflies. Some mothers do have them. Citizen Smith. I used to love Wolfie. I absolutely loved Wolfie. But I loved her mum and dad, Peter Vaughan, and I can't remember her name, but I know it so well. She later went in EastEnders, didn't she? She was Alfie's. Was she Alfie's mum in EastEnders? I used to love her. She just what an actress she was. I can't remember her name, but you folks will know it. I'll know it when I Google it, but I'm not going to bother Googling it. But Peter Vaughan, I thought he was great. And the fella that took over from him. Do you remember? They had a fella that took over from him. Now that reminds me, he was in, what's it called? He's one I forgot for you. The one that took over for him. He was in the, what's it called? In the Funeral Parlour. What's that? I forgot. You know, they made a film of it. Tom Courtenay was in it. I can't remember who was in the series, but you'll know what I mean. Again, somebody tell me down below. In a Funeral Parlour. Can't think what it was called. Tom Courtenay was in the film. I like Tom Courtenay. So yeah, Citizen Smith. Yeah, come the Revolution Brothers, up against the wall. Bop, bop, bop. Loved him in that. Absolutely loved him in that. Thought he was great. To the Manor Born. Again, it's very much like the Terry and Jews and whatever. Gently, but Penelope Keith just had timing. She had brilliant, brilliant timing. Really good comedian. It's only now I'm realising how good she was. And then things like The Good Life. I mean, The Good Life was brilliant. A brilliant show. Reggie Perrin. I love Reggie. I love Reggie. Dead different, dead off the wall, dead good. Reggie Perrin, great. Do you remember this one, Get Some In? Do you remember that was the one? Was it Tony Selby? Something Selby. And I can't remember the other fellas in it, but I don't know when I can see them now. I can see the tall, thin one with the glasses on, the main guy in it. But yeah, Get Some In. I did go in straight. Last of the Summer Wine, well, that made it, 'cause it was going for years and years and years and years. Foggy Dewhurst was always my favourite. I love Foggy. I just absolutely loved Foggy Dewhurst. Thought he was great. Sorry, that one who came to me a couple of days ago with old Ronnie Corbett. Language, Timothy. I like that. Thought it was good. And then I thought of one a couple of days ago. It's comedy. It's more of a show. I've done shows already, but I brought it in here because I only remembered it later on. I like the variety of the Marty Kane show. I like Marty Kane. I thought Marty Kane was really, really funny. And again, another sad, very, very young death. She died much, much too young. And again, she's another one that fought death manfully. She did really, really well. Again, I've brought another show in here because there's lots of comedy on it, and I've not aired it already. The Saturday night at the London Palladium, the Palladium show with, I think first was with Tarbert, when it was at Tarby. Then I think Norman Vaughan. No, did Bruce Forsyth do it first? I think Bruce has done it. Tarby's done it. Norman Vaughan's done it. Loads have done it. But yeah, I used to like the Palladium. Have I got anything else? No, I think that's it. I think that's all I wanted to do. This is unbelievable. It took 22 minutes. I thought this would take an hour or more. But I forgot something. You're going to tell me something I've forgotten. Tell me that one in the Funeral Parlour. I'm sure it was in the Funeral Parlour. I think it was. Anyway, Tom Courtenay was in the film. But yeah, I'll answer another one because I can go to 81 because I've done 81 in the others. Probably, for my money, the greatest comedy of all time. For many people, the greatest comedy of all time. And that is Only Fools and Horses. Absolutely brilliant, but I thought it was out in the late 80s. Now, I don't think I've mentioned Fawlty Towers. I don't think I have. I'm pretty sure Fawlty Towers came out before Fools and Horses. If it did, that's got to be in there. I cannot leave Basil out, so that has to be in there. I used to watch the Ruttles as well, but I didn't mind it, but I didn't love it. So I'm having Fawlty Towers in there if it was out before 81, and I'm sure if Fools and Horses was, I'm sure Fawlty Towers was, but I've not checked up on that. How could I have forgotten that? So anyway, that gives you loads and loads and loads of comedy. Gives you a massive, massive span, because some of them shows I'm talking about probably started in the late 50s, very early 60s, and I was really supposed to be talking about the 70s, but there were shows I was watching mainly in the 70s. And by the way, the video's only going to be less than 25 minutes long, which amazes me. I thought that'd be an hour or more. I've got all of those to read out. There's loads of them. I thought there was well over an hour there. But I will have some out, and some of them will be great. So let me know the great ones I've left out. Let me know the ones that you think are great that I might not, and I'll tell you why I didn't think it. And all the time I'm trying to think, what was the comedy? Was he in a Funeral Parlour? Tom Courtenay was in it. I'll tell you what, I'm going to Google it after I've wrapped this one up, and I'll probably put it in the comment section underneath, so you don't need to tell me, but I can't believe I've forgotten it. And I'm also going to see what year it came out. But I do remember, I'm pretty sure, the bloke in it, that was the boss in it, the main guy, I think it was in the Funeral Parlour, was the guy that replaced Peter Vaughan in Citizen Smith. Because if you remember, he got replaced in it by a bald-headed fella, a tall fella with a big voice, can't remember his name. Anyway, I'll leave it with you folks. There's a few there, because I can't remember the lady's name from that went on to do EastEnders, Alfie's mum, I can't remember her. Anyway, there's a few there for you to ponder and get back to me on. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you've watched it,